Hello, comedy nerds. I'm Masaviagreer.
And I'm Mike George. Today on Comedy Anatomy, we have the great Dane Cook.
Dane is one of the most well-known comedians in the world, having performed in arenas and selling platinum comedy albums. He also starred in numerous Hollywood films, appeared on Oprah, hosted SNL, and the list goes on.
Now, please enjoy our conversation with Dane Cook.
Mo, you look great.
You too, man. I'm happy to see you, man.
Oh man, I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. Just finally talking about comedy and where it is now and where it was for the last 30 years. I felt like this was just the right thing at the right time. So I appreciate you guys asking.
I love it, man.
I wanted to slide back a little bit too, like even to the point where I know when we talked to Robert.
Yeah, with Robert Kelly.
Talking about your sketch group.
That's
and how
Kelly.
you guys
some of that. I heard the whole chunk with Bobby Kelly about the formative years. So yeah, very excited to look back.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I was just wondering too, from that point where you started with the sketch group into the point where you branched off into starting to do stand-up on your own.
Yeah, we were doing the sketch stuff. They asked me to come on board pretty quickly. I'd gone to high school with Al Del Benny. Al was like, I'm in a sketch comedy group. He knew that I wanted to do stand-up because we, went all through high school together talking about we're going to be stand-up comedians. And so I went down there, jumped on board that group pretty much overnight. And then we were doing gigs. Bobby was like immediately like a manager. Bobby was like fucking like working the phones and like calling us days later. I got gigs, dude. I got gigs. No, for real. Don't work at the pizza place tonight. I'm working at a video store or pizza place. I'm fucking selling newspapers. I'm a dietary aide in a nursing home. And Bobby's like, no, dude, fuck all that. This is it. This is our goal. So we immediately started doing, I remember gigs like there was a place called like El Torito's restaurant. And we're there in the back room that they gutted like a makeshift stage. And we would open for ourselves. That's the whole point, is we would do 5-7 minutes, bring each other up, then do 45 minutes of sketch and improv. So we baked into the night an opportunity to just be a stand-up and then do the sketch.
And why did you want to initially jump into stand-up? What do you think your drive was?
Oh man, my whole prospectus early on in my life, 6th, 7th, 8th grade was that world of being on a stage, or when I would watch The Tonight Show. I understood solitude because I was actually a pretty isolated kid. So I thought, this is the way my young brain worked. I thought, well, if I'm such a introvert and I'm so kind of like weirdly lonely but comfortable in my fantastical loneliness, well, I guess that place I could be that lonely kid, but I could be as crazy as I am at home, entertaining my family and myself there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah. I know, and it all obviously became something, you learn once you're in comedy that it's, there's a whole other mechanism and, what it really is, and the motivations and everything, and the pecking orders and just the competitiveness. I didn't know shit about that. I knew if I'm up there talking about what's in here, nobody can hurt me. Wow. They can just hear me. And I think I knew there was a simpatico with me watching certain performers that weirdly I could feel like, I think Robin Williams is in like, I think he has that pain that I have. I think he has that thing that I have, but I'm watching him express there. And get this, I was right. Because 20 years later, when I was standing at the back of the Laugh Factory on numerous nights with Robin Williams, he would stand with his arms folded, his hands on top of each other, very meek, very almost frail looking in himself. Right. And then when Rick Overton would go on the stage, they were very good friends, and say, I'm going to bring somebody to the stage who's kind of good at improv. You guys want to see my buddy? And they didn't know Rick Overton was best friends with Robin. And I would watch Robin standing next to me become Robin Williams on the way to the stage. That was me. So I did catch on to, that's a safe space for me to be bombastic and wild and And I knew that was the equation for me. But of course, we're going to get into all the realities of it. That was the motivating factor. That's a place that I belong because it's just you alone with people listening.
Right. It's not a two-way medium, right? It's you talking to, I mean, it is two-way in the sense of stand-up, you're getting something from the audience, but it's not a two-way communication. The spotlight's on you and it's your voice.
And it becomes, but it later, if you put in your 10,000 hours and you start getting really present, then it actually does, and it can become a conversation. But for a lot of years, it's just an act and a routine. And then I think if you get a certain level of pedigree,
right.
Oh, wow. When I hit that 15, 16, 17 years in, and I transcended into something else happening up there, it was like, whoa, okay, this is, now I'm starting stand-up comedy.
And two, also the Boston scene was a different scene too. I mean, when I think about the people you came up with, it was those guys were like hard hitters. So I guess it pushed your game up. You had to step up your game as far as your stand-up is concerned too. And then from the point of you leaving Boston and coming to New York, what pushed you to do that at that time?
So we were in Boston, and the graduating class was like, we had, Patriceoneal, Bobby Kelly, Al Del Benny, billburr, garygulman was like a couple of years behind us. And then we were seeing like comics that were coming back and forth from New York City. So on any given night, you were surrounded by the fucking heaviest hitters. These are the men and women, mostly men. It was predominantly, guy-centric era, but there were, the Judy Tenutas or the Boozlers but they would come back and forth from New York, and you'd be standing in the back of clubs just watching people destroy. The kind of sets in Boston where you wanted to quit. You're like, I want to leave right now. Like, for real. Right. Like, I remember standing at the back of clubs and just feeling my insides just like, I can't do this. I'm not that.
Did you have any insecurities back then? Because you always seemed like very confident and a force of nature, and you just took opportunities. You weren't a sabotager like so many of us.
Well, it was a pretty good facade, man, because I had the right mix of two personalities. My dad was born into an athletic build, and he was an athletic, lean-in person. Like, physically, when I think of my dad coming into a room, it was like fucking just head and then body following. But I had the exoskeleton, but no, I was more my mom. She was a phobic person. She had a lot of insecurities, but she could have moments where she felt very like brave, and she would take no shit. But then like she was just a lot of insecurity and a lot of fear, my mom. So I kind of had more of that. So the guy that I think everybody met early on was like, I just wanted to not be confrontational. Mm-hmm. I didn't like conflict. I got really nervous about like really ball busting and being in those outside. I love the outside conversations, Mo, when we'd all get out there and it was really spirited. Yes. But truthfully, I was still so scared. So it was like, hit the stage, do what I do, and then
you go.
Yeah, and then I'd go. And so looking back, and what I learned from my peers down the road was like, a lot of people thought I was, based on the comedy, cocksured and like, just like, oh, dude, you fucking just, we thought you were almost like mic drop, like follow that motherfucker. But it was really more of a safety, safety mechanism. I genuinely didn't feel I could hang with everybody all the time. There were nights we did, but then sometimes I just had to get the fuck out of there because I was having an anxiety attack.
No, I can remember that too, Dane. I think when I look back at it, it could appear that way, right? It because you were like, I want to hang out, but I don't know how to hang out sometimes, right? I mean, you had a different take on things. It could come off the wrong way sometimes, the comics, but I think I can understand it now that you explain it, even years later. I had just one question too, I wanted to throw in, which was about when you talk about Patrice.
Yeah, Patriceoneal.
Today, do you think Patrice would be canceled because of his outspoken, with cancel culture and everything that's happening to comedy? I think sometimes it's been kind of shut down. Do you think Patrice would be the outspoken comic he was back then now?
I think he'd be canceled every day, and he'd probably love it.
Yeah.
I can't pretend to know, but I can tell you what I would have hoped for him, which is I always wanted to see him get into like a place like Bill Maher, where I could see Patrice just sit there and weather storms and tell you how he saw things unfolding. I always wanted that for him. And I felt like the way we look at somebody like Chappelle now, so prolific and fucking right there and real. I felt like he could have gotten to that place. I know I realized there was a lot with Patrice, and there was a lot of stuff, a lot of obstacles. Sometimes I think he just threw an obstacle in front of himself to have something to go, that fucking obstacle. And
Sure.
But I think when I hit 40, he was 41, 42. I didn't start really getting a deeper level of understanding until I hit 40. So,
right.
Man, I think he'd be doing great things. I really do.
Mm.
I learned so much from him. The first real truth bomb I heard, Bobby Kelly and Patrice were two of the first men in my life that were honest in a way that I didn't even understand. I didn't even communicate this way with my father. And I had a mentor drama teacher who was very, very loving, but we would talk about art and we'd talk about creativity. Bobby Kelly sitting in his car in Revere Beach one day. I don't know what I said to circumvent a dilemma with him, because I didn't want to be confrontational, but he literally just in his car was like, "Stop fucking lying." I've never had anybody say that to me. I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, just fucking, what are you talking about? Just fucking, you saying one thing, whatever it was, whatever I thought could vamoose me, that worked before that with whoever, that was gone." Bobby, right in that moment, called me on some shit and made me realize, oh, I can be different and we can debate.
Right.
But that was like what I learned as a person from Bobby. But what I learned as a performer was from Patrice. And Patrice said to me at the back of the Nick's Comedy Stop one night, I was doing some stuff and it was probably a little more formulaic because I was trying to live up to this nightly thing of like, I'm the guy that does this. And yet Patrice was already kind of like stand and deliver, bringing his emotions of the day that would weave in and out. And Patrice just said to me, "What are you doing, man?" And I said, I tried to explain my idea. And Patrice said, quote unquote, he goes, be the truth. Leaning out of that chair, I remember it, leaning, be the truth.
Yeah.
And then looking at me like I should already know just by the first sentence, I should just lean up. And he talked to me about get up there and bring something real right now, even if there's some, whatever he called it, phooey or hooey or whatever he said. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really hard to do, though. I'm talking emotionally. Well, I think emotionally and creatively, because to be the truth.
But this is what he meant. Ready? It was like, and we talked way more about it over many, many wings on many nights. What he was talking about was like, even if you're absurd, be truthful about the things you think are absurd. If you're going to be irreverent, be truthful. And what he was saying was, and what I understood almost immediately was this, like, if I'm feeling larger than life, like I'm the shit, go up there and don't be afraid to go, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the best night of your life. Or if I was feeling sullen and rotten and having a self-loathing day, and I had a lot when I was young, go up there and own that and say like, no bullshit. Don't even want to be here right now.
Wow.
Not even sure how I'm feeling, but figure out a way to connect those to the material, and then the audiences can't refuse you because the truth is alluring.
Right.
Even if you're not a fan of it, you can't take your eyes off truth.
Yeah. And I don't want to jump ahead because I'm sure now, I heard Chappelle even say, as you get older, you only get better with comedy. It's the opposite of sports, right? I'm sure now connecting like that is even more powerful because you've lived. You're not 23 anymore,
Yeah. In the 20s, it's like Well, Patrice, obviously from his background, he had a lot more things that he could immediately, had a lot more gravity in his life. And it wasn't to say that I didn't have my own hardships. You know, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. I'm in a chaotic household. I'm a welfare kid that's trying to pretend to be middle. Like my mom protected us when we were on food stamps and we're in the system, but we're still living in a house that we had that we shouldn't have even by rights been in, but she was rheumatoid arthritis hands cleaning fucking toilets and keeping us in a place that we felt like we could be more. So my reality was still stark, but his reality and everything that he brought to the stage day one was right. Our starting points were in two different kinds of places. As time went by, you know, your 20s get into your 30s. Well, now you're looking at remorse. You're looking at ignorance, things that, you know, you're like, oh, fuck, I can't believe I used to, you know, joke about that. It allowed you, hopefully, to be the kind of performer that could actually take their own material from 10 years ago and take the piss out of yourself and make fun of that guy as well as what's happening now. Right. That's the person I strive to be, but you couldn't have that in your early 20s, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like what else did you really know?
Right. Yeah. You don't want to hear political commentary from a 21-year-old or anything of substance, right? You're 21. Right. But going back to that, it's really interesting which I appreciate you being so honest about with anxiety and insecurity. I remember when you were coming up and you were so smart, and I know you've heard this a lot with social media before there was social media. You saw things that nobody saw, and it probably back in the day wasn't cool. And you were doing what every comic in the world is doing now on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. And that was on MySpace. First of all, how did you deal with that emotionally? Because to me, you were very exposed as someone who's anxious. You're really putting yourself out there, not just to fans, but to other comics, to the industry. Yeah. But yet you continued on.
I think some of the early ideas there were, I still was, even in finding some early success, running from the voids that were in me, you know, trying to okay, I'm going to make it in this thing, but you're still, you know, you've got this baggage, right? And yet somewhere early on, I started to, I spent a lot of time in like libraries over the years, and I'd get self-help books, and I watch Oprah with my mom I liked learning. I liked trying to understand. And I also didn't want to be like my dad. I didn't want to end up being an almost guy. He was brilliant if he didn't drink. And so I felt like what I started to realize through the social media and that transformation and connection was, with humor, you know, you can gain power over situations where you feel powerless. I knew that in humor. I was getting the ideas of, oh, wow, like, if I joke about this, if I tell people what I know they already think, what does that do? It breaks it all down, and then you can't hurt me. With the social media, the first thing I posted on like MySpace or my first website that I put up was like, hi, I'm Dane Cook. If you're going to follow me, don't follow me if you're not a fan of risks, because I plan on taking a lot of them in my life. That was my mission statement. And as a way to say, I'm going to fuck up. I don't want to just be this one thing. And I was already giving myself permission to, in a way, fail and own before you could tell me you stink, by being like, no. I told you I was going to try some shit that I didn't know how to do.
Right.
Once that worked in the formative years of AOL Instant Messenger, and people saw a different person than they see on stage, immediately, 98, 99, 2000, it was allowing me to go, I don't have to be a character. I don't have to be phony. I can be both people. I can be a entrepreneurial behind the scenes, have a philosophy maybe, and I can also be a fucking showboat and a fucking goof and irreverent and maybe even have some wisdom. I could kind of change and evolve and grow. And I was learning what a lot of people podcasting today are learning, which is if I communicate my true self here, when you come see me there's a greater picture that you can see around me. You're not just seeing the humor side. And it actually helps entrepreneurially as a performer today. Right. And I think more people are realizing that. And I was realizing it then. I can be a better, bigger version of this evolution if I just start sharing all of it right away. But
it's also amazing that you had, at such a young age, you had that insight, because exactly what you said, I remember in general, just comics being, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not starting a website. I'm not whatever. And now everyone's got the website, everyone's got the podcast, but you saw through that and didn't fall to the pressure, the social pressure of, oh yeah, I might not be liked for this.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. A lot of it was just like, because I'm by nature an introvert. I still just like, I work hard to get home. I go on the road to this day. And if I can go right after the gig, if I can get home, I want to go home. I could quickly get out of there and be comfortable and safe, ultimately just feel safe, no anxiety, but I could still be using that other 23 hours of the day to try to find the people that would give me the ability to pay the rent. So it was a twofer. It was like, oh, wow, I don't have to be with everybody congregating live like the way I am with the mic protecting me and be in the in-between and living from my brain to, you know, the showmanship and the spotlight and the hoopla. It was right up. It was just the perfect opportunity to still promote and meet and greet without, it was just for an introvert. That was
so you enjoyed it.
Could have come along.
It wasn't work back then.
Oh no, it's never been work. To this day, it's not work. You know, I answer every DM to this day. I've never not missed a fan letter. Good, bad, ugly, evil, mean-spirited. Doesn't mean I reply to everything. I have read everything. And here's what I realized very early. Somebody said, fuck you to me early on something. You suck. I hate your fucking bootcut jeans. Whatever, just like shredded me. And then like 4 years later, that same person emailed me and was like, yo, you know, I used to drink and I came from this fucked up background. And lo and behold, this person basically apologized. And you know what I did? Immediately, I went, totally cool. It's all good. Don't carry that around anymore. All good. That's my understanding when hostility comes at me, or when in this industry, the media and perception, everybody's writing a narrative that's totally different from you, that you just expected. It's no one's going to ever know you unless you take the opportunity like this to really be candid. And all those years ago, through that example, and then 1,000 more, I won't say the name, a comedian we all know, sat next to me in a booth one time. I'd never even met this person, and just slid up to me and said, hey, and I knew who they were. Hey, what's up? I want to apologize to you. Why? Well, you never know this, but I used to tear you to shreds, and I used to say this, that, and the other. I said, throw a hug on me. Boom. Hugged it out. I go, it's all good. Let it go. Don't even fucking carry that around. And that's that precedent very early on, in realizing that like we're all going through, and by the way, I can't be a hypocrite. I was also a person who could be judgmental and fucking like,
sure, well, yeah,
foot and mouth disease. And I said some stupid shit, you know, be mindful and go to somebody and be like, hey, I did that.
That level of forgiveness in general, I know, and you've had some pretty public things, whether it's your brother or whatever, that you've had to face. Do you think being a comedian has forced you to learn more about yourself, self-analysis, dealing with things better than a normal person, or had you not gone into this?
Oh, I think that regardless of my occupation, I was already as a young kid wanting to untie the knots. And I realized that there were things happening in and around my home, in my friends' homes, that were unusual and abusive. So no, I think that comedy felt like it was originally going to be my escape and a place to be able to like revel in performance, but also bring humor to other people that were encumbered in their life, as my family felt. And then once I got down the road, I was like, oh wow, no, that I can be both. I can actually have philosophy. I can have a lot of things here with this platform. But no, I definitely think that from a very early age, I was an old soul, as my mom used to say. Even at 14 or 15, she would talk to me about the issues of the family, not my older brother or sister or anybody else. It was like, I just think that was something that I folded into my career. Is just I wanted everything that I did to be able to have I wanted to be able to share the gems, and I wanted to be able to share the capsizing moments. And I wanted to do that since I was a kid.
Well, even when you're saying about getting into comedy and maybe hoping that can even rescue you to a degree.
Well, it was that, but it was also like a way into like, wow, maybe girls dig this and I can actually meet some cool chicks. And
let's keep it real, right?
No lie. It was like, there's a lot of ego and your fucking testosterone's on 50, powered up. So when I first started and was exposed to this idea of like, oh, there's like an allure and there's a whole other, perspective. And I never even realized that. So like, it was all that shit just like boom happening in those first bunch of years out of the gate. The philosophy stuff was like later that I was in, but no. Originally, I would be lying if I didn't say then a lot of it wasn't just me being like, man, while I'm here and enjoying this I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor and really lean in and revel into this whole thing. It was blast.
Yeah, well, and when you're on top and you're young like that, I mean, why would you philosophize about anything? Shit's fucking
no, who cares?
What are you worrying about? You're not going to start looking into shit. You don't need to. You're having the best.
No. I mean, when you started then, did you ever imagine though when it was starting to take course? Like, did it hit you one day? You were like, oh my God, this is unreal.
I felt like from an early age, like full transparency. My sister saw Steve Martin play Boston Garden when I was like 14 or 15. My sister Kelly came home and sat me down and told me what it felt like to watch Steve Martin at the Boston Garden. And I told Kelly, you're going to see me play Boston Garden someday. I'm not a fucking soothsayer. I don't read tarot cards, but I'm not going to lie. I felt very early on, I'm like, I feel so insignificant and small that I'm going to fucking go for everything. I'm swinging for everything. Why not? I feel like a nobody. I'm scared a lot of the time. I want to bust out of this. I'm going to dream the biggest fucking dream. My feeling was if Steve Martin could get there by being a goof and being silly and entertaining, why not? And so I had, as I was moving towards it, you guys, I definitely understood that there was going to be a lot of pushback. And I realized very quickly there's more to it than just what you want. And there's like pecking orders and protocols and, backroom fucking politics and like a lot of shit goes into why great people don't make it. And then there's a lot of shit that go into why people that are kind of sort of do that have nothing to do with the product or their principles. That being said, I was like out of the gate when I saw what you could do on a stage in Boston, in some like outside the city room. I was already going, if I can do this here, if I can make these 30 people laugh like this here, I can do anything around the world that I want if I just do the work.
Was the pressure ever too much? Did you ever just think I can't do this tonight?
No, never in comedy. Never. In other things, yeah, and definitely in the business of being an entertainer and being a boss, and totally, definitely. I've been, I felt like where I can't breathe, trying to figure out how to work my way through, some kind of business ordeal or whatever it might be. Totally, but never in stand-up have I ever in 30 years plus not felt a feeling of just like, this is where I belong. This is my gift. This is my calling. And I've never not given back to that community in any way that I can because it's fed me so much.
It's interesting too, because you've obviously been to the highest mountain you can get to in comedy. And something we talk a lot about is not that money and fame isn't great, but do you find when you're at these pinnacles, even over time, that the goalpost keeps moving? It's never enough. I mean, for you now, where is happiness? Where's contentment?
Yeah, I don't think for me, it's not, there's never enough. For me, it's what else am I capable of and how can I meet that? Listen, when my mom and I would go in downtown Boston and I'd help her fucking clean offices and clean toilets, and we would get a little extra scratch to buy, we used to like to maybe get Chinese food on Sunday. If we could buy 2 bags of ribs, like we made it. And by the way, we shed a lot of tears when there was no oil in the fucking furnace and the Salvation Army had to come and hook us up. So honestly, the minute I started stand up and I started realizing like, oh, I can take care of myself. Like there was nothing that I wanted more except to just continue to accelerate, because I knew if I was a better version of myself as a performer and the guy at the center of my own industry and brand, I knew the money would come. When you come out of that kind of lifestyle, when you make it and that magnifying glass is on you, it's going to show who you really are. And I know people, once they got it and the glass was on them, they became a worse version. Maybe they went through their own metamorphosis and now they figured some shit out, but I know a lot of people that became greedier and more power hungry, or a bunch of stuff, megalomaniacs, even some of them. And then I know other people like myself that just realize and appreciate that monetization comes from when you're doing something that speaks to people and is real to people. So from year to year, whether it's a lean year, whether it's a year where there's like something that came at me that I didn't even expect, that I'm suddenly like, oh, wow, I get to play in this sandbox because this person's like-minded. Into this year, I sat in the middle of COVID and was like, I want to entertain the whole fucking world, and I'm going to figure out how to do it at home. And I called Sean Penn and I said, do you think you could call Julia Roberts? Because I can call Morgan Freeman. And if you think, and next thing you know, we had Brad Pitt and fucking,
oh yes, I saw that,
20 of the biggest A-listers, to the point where literally my joke was, I'm sure people tuning in are like, what the fuck is Dane Cook doing here? And so when you talk about like, I'm just always for the challenge. And trust me, there's some things right now that I'm teeing up that I know 2 years from now, people are going to go, how'd you do that? Where did that come from? What the fuck, man? And it's just literally me with that same ambition of when I first started going, I said I want to entertain the world. Okay, let's see what else in the world is interested in me, and I'm gonna collaborate. So it's never ending. I met jerrylewis 8 years before his death. We talked every Sunday. He was my mentor. He became like a father to me in many ways. And every time, and I have answering machine messages saved of him calling me, hello, my boy. What are you up to? It's the Jew in the desert. I'm calling to check in with my boy. And I would have long talks like we're having with that gentleman who globally with Dean Martin for at least 15 years ruled the world, produced, directed, wrote, created technologies. And at 88, you know what him and I were doing? Trying to figure out what was next, what he wanted to do next at 88. Wow. I'm never not as... and you can probably get it from me here. I love this. I love talking shop, and I like trying to figure out like, yeah, what am I supposed to grow into next? What can I do to contribute to my community? What can I do to challenge myself? What can I do to overcome? What can I do to put the spotlight now as the old bull on this person or that person to try to help them expedite what they're trying to get? That's kind of all where I play these days, man.
Are you moving back in the direction of the stage? Are you going to hit the stage?
Tomorrow night, first time back inside a comedy club, man.
Oh, man.
My last special, I was supposed to film it last July. And because of COVID, it closed down. So my new special will be at the end of the year. Just got to get the rust off a little bit. But I've already got the 2 hours ready to go because I toured it up until...
Is this Tell It Like It Is?
Yeah, that's from that tour.
Okay, great. How did that go?
Radio City Music Hall. I finally got a chance to do Radio City. And that, like... more than anything, my mom wanted me to play Radio City. She wanted to be a rockette. My mom was a great dancer, beautiful gams, long legs. And my mom always said, if you can ever, she said, do two things for me and you'll be the greatest son that I could ever hope for. I said, what? She said, do Oprah and do Radio City. Oprah called 15 years ago and I checked that off and was on the show. And then to do Radio City at the end of that tour was like an embarrassment of riches. And so, yeah, the special is going to be, it's going to be something else, man. It's definitely my most, it's Tell It Like It Is. It's owning everything. It's being able to get the LPMs, the laughs per minute, in some real dark, fucked up things that I've lived through and had happen to me. But it's all fodder and funny when you can, well, once you work it out.
I mean, you're so driven, man. mean, even like you said, what's next? Even honoring Jerry Lewis for saying at 88, what are we going to do? Let's go. Let's go. Are you
want to hear? I got a quick funny Jerry Lewis story. Ready? 88 years old. He's still touring. He's touring. And I watched him, I think over 2 years. Oh yeah, man. He was touring. I watched, sold out everywhere, all ages, grandparents, kids, grandkids. And I probably saw him maybe about 9 times over the course of a couple of years before he, got really ill. And man, if this doesn't tell you the fucking heart and soul of a stand-up comic, but the best part of the night was he would do a Q&A. You could walk up to the mic at the end, and for 40 minutes, he would answer your questions. It was amazing because they weren't pre-planned, and I would be there. So I'm like, okay, this is new. And he would be funny or off the cuff. So anyway, every night, 40 minutes. But on this one night at 25 minutes, the woman came out and said, Jerry Lewis, and took him off stage. But I was like, oh, maybe he's not feeling well or whatever. He's 88 years old. I go backstage. Danielle, his daughter, who I'm very close with, is like, my dad wants you. He's over in the corner. He doesn't want anybody else near him but you. And because I became honestly like, and it's in my book that I'm writing, I became like a son to him. He called me a son, and I was family with my hero, Jerry Lewis. So I walked over and I'm like, what's up, Pops? He grabbed me by the fucking arm. He goes, they fucked me. And I go, what? And he goes, they lit me 15 minutes early. I had 15 more minutes of Q&A.
That's why it's pissed.
The guy conquered the world, and he wanted his 15 minutes of fucking Q&A. Come on. That's what we are, man. It's never ending. It gave me permission to always understand I'm always in a perpetual state of what else can I do? How can I find new ways to express it? It's amazing, man. I learned a lot from him.
Can you turn it off? Like if you go on vacation, can you enjoy it, or is your mind going, thinking about the next gig, thinking about books, thinking about movies, whatever you're doing?
It's a little of both. I'm really good at, I've gotten really good over the years at like my weekends and the way I kind of just like know how to, tap out. But it's also like I'm doing what I love for a living. So it's kind of like it blurs the line. I'm always, joking around, thinking about funny stuff. But as far as like comics that we know that are like on all the time, that's not me. Like when we're off this, like I can be pretty pensive. I'm in my head a lot. I don't need to seek out. When I step off stage, I don't need an after party or a show. By the time I get to the green room, I'm like, oh, I want a hamburger, and I'm ready to just like relax. But my brain's always like,
because I can feel with you, which I relate to. It's hard to be present because you're always striving for that next thing. You know what I mean? It's like you're always, what else? Let's go. What else can you do?
I understand that. Well, it's because I think that there's something in our wiring. There's something that we always feel like, what am I missing? What am I not fucking doing? How can I? It's the I don't know. It's the alpha or the wiring in us, that competitive spirit. But Chappelle, very early in my career, I learned something from Dave by accident, where Dave very early on, and Mo, you know this, like, here's this kid in the city. We're all kids, and then here's like a kid, and he's already one of the best ever. He's already amazing, and we're already seeing a phenom.
Right.
I honestly, I knew right away. There's probably me in some college newspaper in like 95, 96 saying, I think Dave Chappelle is going to be one of the greatest comedians of all time. I recognized something in him that we all did, not just me, everybody. And I did some early gigs with Dave, where some nights he would follow me and vice versa. And I had bombastic, at that point, especially Tasmanian Devil, and I'm just never letting up. But Dave is already like the Charlie Barnett in him, and the Tony Woods in him, and what he's figuring out. He's got a whole different thing. And I'm backstage with him one night because he would still kill even after somebody like me who would go up and just
high energy.
High energy was like my jam. And I said one night, I'm like, man, Dave, I got to tell you, it's just extraordinary seeing you go up, especially after some of the other guys that we were also with, or even myself. And Dave just looked at me and he said, the power's in the silence, man.
True, right?
But the power's in the silence, man.
that's
He did. He said that.
Truth, man.
And the power's in the silence.
It is
all the time.
It is.
Right. It really is, man. On every level, right? Not just even off stage, man.
Yeah. I'm telling you, dude, it's like, I understand though, there's the things that you're talking about. I ruminate a lot, and that's pulling me up, but I have found the things that I need in my life to keep me grounded, because I used to I'm always getting pulled up. I'm always gonna I'm gonna be 88 and probably going like, what else can I recalibrate to, that's my life. That's what I signed up for. But the things that keep you quiet, and for me, it's swimming. I swim every day for an hour. And when every day, man, it's 1,000-calorie burn in 47 minutes, by the way.
You're in shape, brother. I mean, I was like, man, this guy is like ripped.
So that's it. There's nothing else. No other weights, no other fucking, I did HGH years back for a role. And so I played around with like different, but no, I'm purely swimming every day. But the thing that swimming did for me finally, I do a tethered swim. So I'm on a line and I got a belt and I'm in one place and I'm just,
wow.
One spot for 47 minutes, sometimes longer. Sometimes I'm in my head. It's meditation. I'm ruminating. I'm forgiving. I'm fucking fighting. I go through a whole thing when I'm under. I don't know if it's the sun glistening off the bottom of the pool. And the thing that I'm most grateful for is that I have found over years, like the people that I have around me now, that regardless of what is happening, career, busy day, lean year, whatever you want to, call it, those are the people that like, I'm centered and I'm enjoying life regardless. So I understand though, because everything's always wanting to pull me up, and I get that too. And then you get like frustrated, you get like, that can wear you out, because we just want to go. And then, there's things to learn before you can get there.
So many people, and you've gotten so many comics, especially, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, think once they get there, if they get there, they will finally be okay.
Right.
And it's great. And it's not, I'm not saying it isn't amazing. It's amazing, but that's not the case. I mean, from people we've talked to on this show over and over, is that something you can relate to? Like, you get to this place where you think, this is it. This is what America promises. And it's fucking awesome, but it's not everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. When you've had everything and then it was taken away from you, I went through that whole thing with my brother, and not to get too into the weeds on it, but I went from rags to riches to rags, essentially. It was like, I was back at where I started, and I realized through an incredible year plus of therapy and the best road gig I ever did was going in. Best road gig, longest road gig was going in. And what I realized, once I lost everything seemingly, I was like, and I said this in court to my brother when I read what's called a victim impact letter, which I said, I'll only come into the courtroom and read to my brother if you don't refer to me as a victim. Don't call it a victim impact letter. I'll come in and read an impact letter. The court obliged. And I read to my brother, who stole basically my life savings, this impact letter. You know what I said to him? I said, you're such a fool, because now you're off this incredible journey that I'm never going to stop. I said, and you'll never steal what's in here. So once I made it again, and I proved to myself that it really was never about the financial gain. That was never the goal. The subscription I wrote for myself wasn't to be, Jim Carrey wrote a $10 million check. I would have probably written a note, not even a check. I didn't care. I did not care about that. That is never why I wanted to do what I did.
Right.
And until I was in a situation where I could help others, or reinvest in myself, or get my mom the best doctors, or of course, for that reason, fuck yeah, give me all the money to reinvest in my brand and my vision. And great, who doesn't want to do that? But in that year, the rock bottom, and then being able to come back from that again and prove to myself, oh, it wasn't a fluke the first time. It wasn't because of whatever, the internet or MySpace. It was because of what's right here. That's where I would want you and all the performers I know, that, I don't do a lot of I mentor, but my advice is usually like, get away from all the voices of advice and even me. And remember this, the golden gut that you have, that's what you should be listening to. And is your job, it is incumbent upon you, when you're spinning, You got to be removing the hurdles and obstacles and the trauma of your life. The success is already fucking there. What's avoiding a success is the shit that's in front of you that's either afraid to succeed or that you're just not willing to fucking do the work quite yet. The success is easy. That's easy. Anybody with a mission statement and able-bodied, you can fucking succeed. But can you do the work to get the shit out of your way that's clogging you up? That's the fucking road that you need to be on.
Dang, that's powerful, man. Like, I just sent chills up my spine, brother.
You know what's You know what is powerful about it is you fucking did it. I mean, people talk like that all the time, and then you go, okay, but you did do that. And even it's funny, even you saying something as small or as quick as, oh, I swim an hour a day, I tether myself to a wall and swim for an hour. That takes mental fortitude, man. Like, I row on a rowing machine. You're like, I mean, some days you do, but you're like, I don't want to do this. I will do anything not to do it. But then you get in for you, the pool, and you fucking do it. And that's that work ethic that is beyond the short-term benefit. It's not just about the benefit for today. It's looking down the road long-term.
Right. And it centers you, because when you're done rowing, regardless of how you felt going in, you feel great after. You feel amazing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is true, man.
And I think if you're able to really lean into do what you love, like I'm at 31 years in, what you start to learn is like, I don't identify myself as a comedian or entertainer or boss or whatever. It's like all that stuff I learned on the journey of like, oh no, I'm trying to figure out. For many years, I was running from something and I ran as fast as I could to get away from the trauma and a lot of shit. And then I made it, and I was always fucking charging towards something because I thought that would fill me up. Yes. But in the last 10 years, it's all been about stillness and, some, Bruce Lee, like be like water. And that's where I live, man. That's where, and then you start to just realize the comedy is just something we do. It's just something we do that we love. It's not, you don't have to prove anything to anybody except for yourself and what you want to do with that. And from that, you can have everything. Yeah. Because the truth, as Patriceoneal said, people desire that. When you're the truth and you come from a real place, it's really hard too, because as performers, we all know that like it is a performance and a persona, like a heightened. And so I know some people to this day that are fucking hilariously funny, but they're still not the truth. And you go, why aren't they more? Because they're so fucking funny here, but they're here. And I want so badly to see them fucking just like Chappelle. You know what I mean? It's like, just.
You know who I always loved? Right, and I think a perfect example of that is garygulman. I always thought he's so funny. Why isn't he bigger? And then he did his special about the depression, where he's so truthful and so honest. And you just see him explode into what he should be.
Right.
That was an amazing thing to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I think that guys like Gary and, Burr, same thing. It's like, and some people are like, oh, Burr broke late. No, Burr broke when, if you know his story at all, Burr broke when it all fucking came together.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. I knew Tiffany Haddish when she was 13. I taught Tiffany Haddish stand up with a couple of other comics over one summer. Okay. We at comedy camp at the Laugh Factory, me and I want to say like there was like Paul Rodriguez that summer and maybe one other person. Every Saturday I get together with Tiffany Haddish, and I would sit, and I did it many summers. I don't know, 15 summers, and we'll probably still do it next summer. And I sat and I watched Tiffany Haddish, and by the end of the summer, she was already funnier than comics that had opened for me on the road. She was already like a young Chappelle standing at the center of owning her truth, talking about trauma. She was already talking about abuse. At 14, she was talking about, now, then you go, wait, well, then why didn't Tiffany pop in her 20s? Well, I can't speak for Tiffany, but I can tell you what I saw. I saw a person who, like myself, was still running and still trying to figure out a good facade. And then once she fucking just used every tool in her arsenal and started talking like I'm talking and we're talking here, like, doesn't always need to be funny. It can just be real. Once she did that,
yeah. Wow. I think it's so good for, first of all, young people to hear what you're saying. Cause I think so much of it is you wear this brittle shell of comedian. I mean, that's your identity. So you're constantly comparing yourself. You're constantly looking at where you should be. But you're so much more than just that, which is what you just said, that title of comedian or boss or whatever. It takes a long time for some people to realize that. And that's when you're right. You absolutely blossom, and on stage and off stage. Like, you can be more forgiving. And I don't know if you've always been as forgiving as you are, but you start to see other people's pain for what it is and not look at it with such insecurity of your own.
Absolutely. And you start to realize we got one ticket to ride on this life, and then the ride is over. So all this shit we're trying to accumulate, it's for naught, but energy is forever. And I subscribe to the idea that if I put out all kinds of fucking incredible energy into art and, collaboration, just all the things that, reaching down and trying to help somebody up to that next, if I do that enough, maybe when I go, maybe my energy will be fucking awesome forever. Maybe my little vibration after whatever you believe the next level up is, or the simulation ends, I'd like to believe that maybe that's when it'll all really make sense. What's after this,
Hey, Dane, man, I don't know how to thank you, man. This has been like,
this is great, dude.
So we can tell the listeners too what's coming up for you.
So now that the things are starting to come back to somewhat more normalcy, I've got 2 films. They're actually both dramas that are getting back into production. And then there's my first comedy film is one that I wrote about 4 years ago. And I can't speak too much on it, but amazing partner that I'm collaborating with. And so it's going to be great to get those things finally geared up. The book I'm going to finally probably release right around when the special comes out, so I can kind of be talking about all that at once. And then more directing, actually more behind the scenes stuff. I did a short film last year. I've got another one on tap to do a full length in the fall. So I think really me, it's like there's always going to be on stage, but I also accomplished everything I really wanted to in terms of like, I don't need to reprove to myself certain things that I did before. So it's really trying to tell stories collaboratively, where now I can be behind the camera and hopefully put the right group of people to just tell stories, man. Just tell stories.
Man. Thank you, Dane.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. It was really cool of you to come on. And
I was excited to do it. Like I said, once I went down the rabbit hole and I just started listening to different conversations you guys were having. I was like, man, I just miss talking shop. And Mo, I just want to say, man, I have to say sincerely, you're always a great guy to me. And I felt like in the sidewalk that we shared, and it's interesting because I know that we were both, just from what you've shared on other conversations, you were encumbered and you were dealing with certain things, and young men, and we're, but when we had those kind of moments where I felt like we, connected, you're always a great guy to me. And I just wanted to say, truly, I really appreciate you, because you were one of the people that I felt like was keeping me wanting to stay there and keep charging. Because there were a lot of nights where I literally got on a Greyhound bus and left New York.
Oh, man.
I fucking dipped out, man. I would have anxiety. I get scared, and I just wanted to not quit, but just go home. And nights that we had some, it just felt very real and very loving. And
thanks, Dane.
And those are some great memories for me, man. So it's great to reconnect with you. I hope we can stay connected from this moment forward, man. Really.
Thank you, Dane.
Appreciate you.
Oh, man. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right, fellas.
Okay, Mo, let them know how they can support us.
Make sure to subscribe to Comedy Anatomy and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Comedy Anatomy and on Twitter at comedy_anatomy.